Hello there, fellow truth seekers. This is Doug coming to you once again on this here Shabbat. Just want to say I hope all of you been doing well and that you've been blessed. I know I posted a video 2 weeks ago, and of course it got took down by YouTube for medical misinformation because I was talking about the Jabola, and I'm gonna redo this. I'm gonna do the same subject that I was doing on that day. I thought about just changing the name of it and then trying to re-upload it again and see what happens. But if they, I got a strike and it's under appeal, and I still hadn't heard nothing from the appeal, because I wasn't talking about anything that other YouTube channels are not talking about. I don't understand why they have to target me, but they do every time. This is like the fifth time I've had a video took down because it's the same thing, medical misinformation. But I was talking about stuff that Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle Software, was talking about pertaining to that, and a couple other issues about it, but kind of tied into this, and I'm going to try to still bring that in, but just I'm going to have to be crafty about it, I reckon, because I'm going to tell you, I'm about to the point where what I'm going to do in the future is, if it's a controversial thing that they're going to strike me for, I'm just going to upload it to Rumble, and I'll just come on here and give you a notice that that's where it's at if you want to watch it. Because, I've thought about just going strictly to Rumble to do these, because, it's getting kind of old. YouTube censorship, I mean, they are censorship devils. And them and Google, there's nothing free speech about them. And I hope at some point that'll change, but it's not looking promising. Unless they get their Section 230 protection taken away from them, and they're declared to be publishers because they're editing. That's what, basically when you censor something and take it down because it doesn't meet your criteria, then that's editing. And that means you're a publisher. And so you don't enjoy that protection. And so if you don't, then you're open for liability. They need to be open for liability. But anyway, the subject, and I'm going to rename it. I was calling it the Drone Wars, but I'm going to call it the Stargate Revolution. And what it deals with is, and of course this does tie into biblical prophecies and stuff, about them having the ability to monitor everything, cut your finances off, and when and one of the things that they do is, and this is part of the Hegelian dialectic, is they create problems. They'll create a problem, a false flag or something, and they will direct the reaction and then provide a solution, and then see how it goes over. But it's all about moving peoples, nations, regions in a direction that they want it to go. And so of course, at the very top of this pyramidal Ponzi scheme, because that's what it really is, at the top you have the controllers, the banking cartel that is moving things into the direction, and they use wars, they create wars, they use wars to move things in the direction that they want them to go. If you want to push people towards a global government, then you would start like World War One, and you would create a League of Nations, to try and prevent another world war. And of course, the League of Nations fell apart, and it didn't do anything. So then you create another world war, and you finance both sides of it. I mean, when you begin to do research on these wars, you find that the bankers are at the center of it. They finance these wars, both sides. I mean, in like World War II, we had companies here in the U.S., and a bank in particular that was controlled and ran by one of the George Bush the First's father. And they were sending money over to Nazi Germany. They were giving him money. And of course they were involved, because if you look at this thing, it's like a spider web. You got this spider web of secret societies, bankers, these political groups like the CFR, the Club of Rome, the Bilderbergs, and others that are made up of this exclusive club of people that are in secret societies like the Skull and Bones, Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, the Jesuits. When you begin to look at the makeup of these organizations, you see that they're made up of these people that are in these secret societies and stuff, and all of them are a globalist, one world government kind of thing. And excuse me. So they do everything they can to shape and move things in the direction that they need it to go in order to bring this about. And one of the things that they do is, of course, is indebtedness through fiat money. They get everybody in debt, because that's all our money is debt. I mean, it says it right on it, that it's debt. And so they get everybody in debt through endless wars and conflicts, just like they have the United States. I mean, if you look at our history, at least how it's been written and all, going back to the Revolution, we've been in some kind of conflict or war ever since. And we've stayed perpetually indebted. The only time that we were not, perpetually in debt to these people was when Andrew Jackson was president. I mean, he shut them down. And up until they assassinated Abraham Lincoln, they were kept out. And they assassinated him so that they could do just that. They were trying during the Civil War. They were financing both sides of it. They financed the North and the Confederacy and the Union. They financed both sides. And they're the ones that started it. They got it going. I mean, their people started it. And they've been doing this all along, and so to keep you in debt to them, keep you in debt to them, and you forever paying them interest on money that we could print ourselves. I mean, our Treasury Department, in fact, that's what Lincoln did. He printed the greenbacks had the Treasury Department issue the money, the greenbacks, and it really incensed them. I mean, it made them so mad. And then if you look into the history of John Wilkes Booth, he was Illuminati. Freemason, Illuminati. He was right in there with them, and but they created a different narrative around it. That he was a Southern sympathizer and all that stuff. That was all just made up. But you can see this is how they operate over and over and over again, and it's kind of the way that Hasatan operates is that he's done this over and over again. I talked about that, in the last video that I released that actually got on here. But if you look at in Scripture, these world empires rise up, and then there's like a reset, and then it goes a period of time, and then there's another attempt by him, and he does the same thing over and over again. And the reason is humans are gullible. We fall for the same thing over and over and over again. His same trick. He don't have to do nothing really different. Why would you do something different if every time it works? That you raise up this tyrant or this strong man that you raise up that coalesces the people into a world government. Before the flood, Atlantis and all that, and then after the flood, Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, and then on down, you probably had somebody else, and then you come to Rome, and each time they get to a level of pretty high technological capability. And then, then you have a reset. Well, I believe that the Roman reset was the tribulation, 70 AD, and Israel ceased to exist. There is no more Israel. These people over here that claim they're Zionists, they're Ashkenazis, they're not Hebrews, and that's just all there is to it. And so, it's just Satan's attempt to make us think that we're going, headed towards the tribulation and then the millennial kingdom and all that stuff, that it ain't happened yet. And that's why it's he goes, and if you listen to what it says there in Revelation 20, verse 7, it says he's released out of his prison to once again go out and deceive the nations. It doesn't mention Israel. Just the nations. And of course you can go back to Genesis 10 and 11, and it tells you who these nations are, who they descended from, and we can see these, and the thing is when they come out of the millennial kingdom, the saints that were there, the ones that overcame the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, and of course you can go back and find out that the Romans did mark people. They're citizens. You had to have this mark in order to trade and to buy and sell and all that stuff. If you didn't have it, you couldn't buy it. And their empire was worldwide. I mean, we're really beginning to see the revelation of these structures we see all over the world, that a lot of them were buried and all. So that stuff's all done happen. And if you were, regular, people that went into the millennial kingdom that were not saints and not the 144,000 of the tribes or the 12, Talmudim, the disciples, then you went into it still just like a normal, regular, everyday human being. But the thing is, and you still live and die and all just like you always did. But I believe their lifespans were expanded, that they were given healing and the waters were healed and the land was healed, and they were allowed to go on pretty much living like they always did, except just no more war and conflict. Whenever any kind of a conflict would arise, then the Kodashim and the Talmudim, their job was to settle these disputes and to rule over these people, over cities, over nations, over regions. And then Yahushua ruling the world. And I seen a map, and of course I don't know, of course, like anything else, I just have to take it on what I see. And but it was a map that showed this millennial kingdom, and at the very center of it was Yahushua. So I really have come to the conclusion that, or I'm beginning to come to the conclusion that the geography and stuff that we've been told is not really the way that it really is. That the center of the world, there where the magnetic mountain is, Mount Meru or whatever, or Zion, is at the center of the earth. And that would be what we call the magnetic North Pole. And so that's where I believe he was at, and still is. That this and if you read in the book of Enoch, he even talks about going to this place of snow and ice and these mountains that were metal mountains, different metals. And so, and one big mountain that went all the way up to the very top up there. So I think he's still there, and that's where the camp of the saints is. And of course that would have included all of the people who were resurrected, who had died in Christ or were, which I think the old pre-Christ saints, David, Abraham, Jacob, Moses, that when Yahushua was resurrected, they were resurrected. And then at the tribulation, when the destruction of Jerusalem happened, and the temple was destroyed, that was the end of the Hebrew nation, of Israel. That was it. They had become desolate because they did not recognize the time of their visitation. They rejected Yahushua. And so that was it. They had been given chance after chance after chance to do what was right, and even been enslaved and scattered out. And I think that the 144,000 that we see there in Revelation, I think it's in Revelation chapter 9, if I'm not mistaken. But if you look at those 144,000, they were sealed at this time. They were gathered. They were gathered from all over the world and gathered back over there and sealed. And then there was some of those there in Jerusalem that, that when they got right down to being wiped out, they called on the name of Yahushua. It says, I will not come until they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah. And so they called on him, and the few that was left, because they were pretty much wiped out. And because he told his Talmudim in Matthew 24, when you see Jerusalem encamped about with these armies, flee unto the hills. So his Talmudim and the true believers, they fled Jerusalem when they saw these armies begin to encompass Jerusalem. And so, and in the book by Flavius Josephus and Tacitus, they both describe seeing chariots and horses in the sky. And these melted mountains and just melted, we call it the mud flood or whatever, but it was probably the presence of Yahuwah that caused this stuff, and because he talks about how whenever he comes down, his presence causes the hills to melt and the oceans to roar and all that stuff. So anyway, this is So this stuff all happened, and so this, what we're seeing over here is just Hasatans. I talked about it in the video I did on what would you do if you were in Hasatan's place. If you were bound 1,000 years and then you're released, and during that time you're planning your deception. And I think it may be even tied into the scripture where it talks about people being given over to a strong delusion to believe the lie, because they would not receive the love of the truth. And people that have kind of come, the Ruach has awakened them and began to open their eyes. They began to want to know the truth. And the greater their desire to know truth, the more that they are revealed. More truth is revealed to them. But those people who cannot receive the truth, they just cannot receive the love of the truth. They are trapped in this strong delusion. And so Satan and his minions, they're going to take advantage of that. And this is the people that come out of that delusion and begin to embrace the truth and want to really know the truth. They're going to be the enemy, and they want to find us out. And I'm pretty sure that they're keeping a digital log or whatever. AI is tracking, people like me and others that are calling this stuff out and talking about it, revealing truth that they want to keep suppressed. But now I'm going to get to the subject of this video, which is the Stargate Revolution, which is, most people are not aware of this. I mean, they we've been hearing a lot from President Trump and all in his administration we've heard about this Stargate, but there's aspects to this that people have not heard about. Star Shield and the Replicator drone program. And these are all happening simultaneously. This is not, one thing's going to be built and then the next, and then no. They all are being built and are going to be integrated at the same time. Okay, now Star Shield is the equivalent of Starlink, but the government's version of it. And these are small little satellites or whatever, but they have big capabilities. They're going to be the eyes and ears of Stargate. Stargate is the AI. And SoftBank, which is a large Japanese conglomerate. It's not a bank, it's a conglomerate. And it's huge. One of the biggest companies in the world. And they have committed $1 trillion to this endeavor. And I'm pretty sure that, it's going to be a collaboration. It's going to be a collaboration between, all of the technocrats. Tim Cook with Apple, Sam Altman with ChatGPT, Larry Ellison, Oracle Software. I'm sure Microsoft will be involved in it. And chip manufacturers, TSMC, which is the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturer, has committed $100 billion to build factories here in the U.S. to turn out chips. And then you're going to have NVIDIA, which is the people that make the AI processors, the learning processors. They're involved. And then you have Elon Musk and his XAI. And right now, his AI, Grok 3, is the most powerful AI in the world right now. And he built a AI supercomputer called Colossus. And they built this thing in 6 months. I mean, that's incredible to build a supercomputer like this that is capable of exaflops, which is unbelievable amounts of processing in a second. And it surpassed Frontier and what was the other one? Both of them were government computers. I think Frontier was at Lawrence Livermore somewhere, and at the Energy Department, where they simulate nuclear explosions. And then you had one there at Oak Ridge that was, really powerful. And it took them a while to build this thing. It took them several years, and to build it and the infrastructure and all that it took to bring it online. Well, this Stargate, this $1 trillion, and that's just what the Japanese are putting into it. It doesn't say how much the federal government's tying into it, and these other companies. What their involvement, money and effort and all involved in it is going to amount to. I'd say that the total program is probably going to be $4 or $5 trillion, and then you have. President Trump was talking about building, suggested to them, because the problem is America's power grid is pretty much maxed out, and it's kind of running, a lot of it is antiquated and needs to be upgraded. Well, their alternative, and President Trump's the one that suggested it, was to build power plants of some kind right there adjacent to the data center. And of course they'll have these data centers scattered out. They won't put them all in one place, in other words, they won't put all their eggs in one basket. But they'll have these data centers. Of course they're going to have to be near where there's water, because they use water for cooling the processors and stuff. They generate tremendous amounts of heat, and so they have to be able to cool them. And so you got to have a lot of water. So they got to be near some water. And then he was talking about maybe like building like cogen plants where you can run different types of fuels, coal, natural gas, oil, whatever. But there's other people that are of the opinion that it should be compact nuclear reactors. I don't know what the final iteration might be, but maybe a combination. It may be that it's a compact nuclear reactor with the ability to run off of alternatives if necessary, off of natural gas or coal or whatever. And and simultaneously to this, he's just signed a bunch of executive orders, and Congress is moving to codify it into law. The reintroduction of mining for copper, what they call defense critical stuff, is going to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be onshored, where they've been getting copper and these critical metals, rare earth metals and stuff. We have tremendous amounts of this stuff here. It's not like we don't have it. It's just that environmentalists and people have, basically shut it down. And the hypocrisy of that is that they don't have no problem with them going over to Africa or to some other third world country and destroying their environment to get at these minerals and these metals and stuff. So I think that they're gonna, and I've seen where there's already people that are beginning to ramp it up. They're going to bring the copper and iron and these metals, these rare earth metals. They're going to shore up America's steel and aluminum and metal production to where, they're not going to allow anybody to come in and buy up U.S. Steel or any other of our steel companies. They're too critical to national defense. And of course, that's one of the parts of the Hegelian dialectic that they use is the threat of some outside force to drive people to accept this. Because if people begin to understand what this is going to entail, they might have some trepidation. They might think twice because they don't really understand what this, when it's all integrated, what it's really going to represent. And then you have the push for this sovereign fund of cryptocurrencies and gold and all that they are trying to. I got something on the screen that's bugging me. And all this stuff plays together. And Larry Ellison, the CEO of and founder of Oracle Software, said that this is necessary. That everything needs to be monitored to keep people in line. So some of the replicator program and then the Stargate and Starshield. Starshield is going to be the eyes and ears of Stargate, the AI. And I guess it's going to, its architecture and its AI is going to be, I think they're going to follow what Elon Musk at Tesla has done, because again, his is the most advanced, most powerful AI right now. And the configuration of the Colossus, the supercomputer, AI supercomputer, I think is going to be the blueprint for this final iteration. And I was watching Facts Matter with Roman Balmakov. He's a journalist for the Epoch Times, and I would say he's a pretty unbiased journalist. One of only a few that he really just looks for the facts, the truth, and wherever it may lead. And of course, his program on YouTube is, of course, been demonetized, and and they look for anything to try to censor him as well, and others. Joshua Phillips on Crossroads, he's another Epoch Time journalist, and they go after him because they're speaking the truth. And again, truth is truth, and it all ultimately originates with Yahushua. And so, but anyway, he was talking about this replicator drone program, and there's a tremendous amount of money being pumped into this too. And they used the threat of China and its drone capabilities. Now, of course, the U.S. has far superior drone technology than China. We've got, drones like the Air Force type drones. I'm talking about the big Predator and stuff like that can loiter for days and go up at real high altitudes and can target people, can do a lot of things, and they can be autonomous. They can be turned loose and they can go do their thing, and then after a certain time they come back. But China has an advantage in its ability to mass produce drones. And they also are pretty adept at this hive drones, where you have thousands of little small drones all working together to. They just did. I saw one where they made a dragon. These drones were lit up different colors, and they all formed the shape of a dragon up in the sky. And it was thousands of drones all working together in a hive. And really, with AI and computers, something like that's not that difficult to do. But the thing that the fear mongers are saying, they can produce millions and millions of these things, and we're at a disadvantage. We can't really produce large scale amounts of drones. So enter the drone technocrats, the ones that are, and these are going to be your little small Silicon Valley startups, because a lot of people think, these big companies like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and different ones, General Dynamics, they create all this stuff. Not really. I mean, they build large defense programs, like submarines and fighter jets, ships, stuff like that, tanks. But for the most part, they're pretty clumsy and awkward when it comes to developing new technology. So what they do is, rather than to come up with a technology in-house, because it would end up being, they could do it, but it would cost them a lot more to do it in-house, because you got so many layers of bureaucracy. Just like in the federal government, it's ineffective and inefficient. It can do a few things good, and that's all it should be doing, is these few things, like defense and the social programs. I mean, Social Security and stuff like that. But all this other stuff, it needs to be given back to the states, and they're doing it. They're getting rid of the Department of Education. They're probably going to get rid of the IRS. They're probably going to get rid of the ATF, and they're rolling them into other departments. May get rid of the CIA. Who knows? I don't know how extreme they're going to get, but I would love to see, like Javier Milei down there in Argentina, where he just went by and started ripping off all these departments and gone to down to where it was like 12 departments, and that was it. We got like 400 departments and agencies. I mean, it's just crazy. The federal government should be small, and but anyway. And I think that's tied in. It is going to be small, but it's tied into this Stargate. And I believe that's part of what Elon Musk and them are already up there doing, is they're mapping out these old antiquated systems, these old IBM 360s, these old digital systems. And let's see, they used to have a plant down there in Apex. I can't remember the name of them, but they built mini computers and like mainframe type stuff. And so the government has a lot of these old legacy systems up there. I mean, they're pretty stable, they're stable, robust systems, but they don't communicate between departments. Like the Social Security should be communicating with the Treasury Department, Okay, because the Treasury Department is issuing checks for Social Security recipients, and but they don't. They don't communicate. So you have issues, and when so the Treasury Department can't say, well, look over here at Social Security whenever somebody dies. The funeral home or whatever that handles it, or the when somebody dies, the local medical examiner has to issue a death certificate. And then that death certificate has to be sent to the government, to the Social Security Administration, and to others, that say, hey, this he's no longer with us. And so they would send some kind of directive to the Treasury Department, you need to stop sending this check. But how many times has that not happened? And they're still sending out checks and somebody's cashing them, or they're going into their account. And so they're mapping out all of these systems using AI. And ultimately, with the intention of all of it being put on Stargate, those old systems, those old legacy systems will go away, be dismantled, because they won't be needed anymore. And so by the same token, these people that are in these little startups, because they're real nimble, they got some really cutting edge technology, drone technology and stuff like that. That's the ones that are going to be your next big Apple or Nvidia or Tesla. They're going to be, and some of these companies are AeroVironment, Scale Up Production, Andrew Industries, Performance Aero. They are the companies, and where they're going to be going is they're going to be going to the heart of all of the technology hubs to get people, these real nimble, cutting edge startups that have the latest and greatest, and they're going to really push them. They're going to back them. And so this Andrew, for example, they have a I think it's called a Ghost X or something like that. But the drones that these companies are developing and making are small. They're not like these Predator drones, that are the size of a small jet aircraft. No, they're making these things that are somewhere between 10 and 75 pounds. And I think this Andrew, and here's another one, this Swarm Arrow. What they do is they make these little 12-pound drones that up to now they have been being used for, like, say somebody gets lost out in the mountains or something, and they find them, but they're in a really bad place, and it'll take time for rescuers or whatever to get in there to them. They can use one of these drones to drop a packet in there of first aid kit, some food, water, that kind of stuff. But again, all of this kind of stuff is dual use technology. It can be used for civilian purposes like that, or it can be used for military. It can be used to be eyes and ears. It can be used to, be armed with small caliber weapons, bombs, to be used as a kinetic weapon to just run it into something. And they're expendable. They're not, when you look at the cost of the MQ drone, the drone like the Navy has, I think them things are like $400 million a piece. As where this thing, is $500, $1,000, or something like that, and it's can be configured in all different kinds of ways. And so they've received tremendous amounts of investment. Andrill has gotten $1 billion worth of commitment to build a plant up in Ohio that will turn out these drones, and they will be able to turn millions of them out. I mean, it's $1 billion, 5 million square foot plant, and it's going to be automated. There'll probably be a few people working in there, the janitors and some technicians and software people and stuff like that. But, it's not going to be like the old time manufacturing where you got, 5,000 people working in here, assembling these things. Most of this stuff can be done with AI, directing robots. And of course, people are going to need to be skilled up. I think that they're going to really emphasize tech schools. They're going to start funneling more and more money into tech schools and stuff like that, and pushing people towards trades and towards, manufacturing stuff, making stuff again. I mean, there's already been all these commitments by companies, Honda, Hyundai, LG, Samsung, Volkswagen, I mean, on and on and on, that are committing to build manufacturing plants here, because Trump's done said, you're going to get tariffed. You either make it here, bring the manufacturing back here, you make it here, or you are going to be tariffed. And so they're bringing it back. But you got to have people that can actually work in these facilities, and a lot of them, again, they're going to continuously be upgraded with automation and robotics that are ran and controlled by AI. But the idea here is what they were talking about is future wars. Like if we ever went to war with China, there's a good possibility that it's going to be a drone war. It's going to be a war that is fought with drones initially. And they were saying that, not thousands of drones, not tens of thousands of drones, but tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of drones of all different kinds, with all different kinds of tasks and stuff. And I saw this trailer for this movie. I wished I could remember what the name of it was, but it was about these drones, I mean, that were run by AI, and how they were, almost impossible to escape these things. And, robots as well. And the other thing is that these humanoid-like robots, like Tesla's Optimus, and Atlas, by Boston Dynamics, the only way that these things are able to do the things they're able to do is wirelessly, being directed by AI, because you could never build a humanoid robot capable of mimicking human abilities. They just you couldn't get enough programming and processor and memory on board to do that. It's just like with us, like I've talked about. We've got processors in our head, our mind, sub-processors, visual cortex, auditory, smell, olfactory, taste, feel. And we've got some memory, short-term memories. We've got like cache, where things are stored, temporarily. We've got stuff that, like a ROM memory, where our program is, our operating system. But our main memories are stored somewhere else. And they're retrieved through our pineal hippocampus system, that's in here in the center, or third eye, as they call it. it's communicating with this database that our stuff is stored in continuously, and it's seamless. We can't even detect it. And that's the way this system is going to work with this AI. It's going to be seamlessly connected to these robots and stuff. It won't surprise me 10 years from now if you go uptown and you see a Optimus, robot in a police uniform. It wouldn't surprise me. And so these companies that are all working in on this stuff, the Hive drone swarms, AI software autonomy, Swarm Arrow, and Swarm Arrow is building one of these drone plants in Arkansas, a great big huge plant that's going to be able to turn out millions and millions of these little small multi-role drones, and the idea is that once this Stargate AI system is online and the bugs are worked out and it's up and it's learning, and then it will be exponential. I mean, it will compared to previous generations, because the thing is they are using this AI, like this Grok 3 AI and this Colossus supercomputer, to develop. They're designing this Stargate. They along with these other companies like NVIDIA, they're all involved in the design of this system. It's not just any one company that's involved. It's a bunch of them, bunch of technocrats, and people from around the world. Computer scientists and programming scientists and all that kind of stuff. They're all involved in this, but nobody else has the financial wherewithal to actually do this other than the United States. Nobody else does. Europe doesn't. China doesn't. Nobody else does. And so they're and then you got L3 Harris. Of course, I don't know if people are familiar with L3 Harris, but if you've been through an airport, and you've gone through these scanners and stuff like that right there, that they make that equipment. They make the barcode reading systems. They make these little, you go to the courthouse and they got one of those things like a doorway you walk through that goes off if you got a pocket knife or a gun or something. They make those kind of systems. So they're a pretty good sized company, and they may be, and I think they're involved in other stuff as well, defense stuff and all, but they are developing this amorphous software, which is a real fungible. It's able to morph, and you can program it in such a way that whenever if you load it into one of these drones, the drone can react to unknowns. It's more adaptable to unknowns. Because you can only, you can program every, possible that you can think of scenario, and still, like the best laid plans of mice and man, you can make all the plans in the world, and one thing you forgot is what's going to happen. I think it's Occam's razor or something, but anyway, so you got all these companies involved, and this is just a start, because they're going to be going to all of these, Silicon Valley, Austin, Research Triangle Park, Route 158 up in Boston. These are the tech hub centers. And so, they're going to be recruiting these little startups, and they're going to be encouraging them. A refocusing away from, and it's going to be all, it's going to be defense related, but they're going to market it as a boon for society, for civilization. The fourth industrial revolution, as Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum called it. And even Elon Musk had talked about, there's going to probably end up having to be some type of universal basic income, because with this AI and robotics, people are going to lose their purpose. They're when you can build a factory, and the Japanese, I think it was NEC, built a factory over in Japan. I mean, this has been a long time ago. I mean, like in the late 80s, that made chips, and I think there was 6 people worked in this factory, and it was big. It was a big factory, and they were just technicians. They just went around and reset stuff, or if they found a bug in the software or something, they'd go in and rewrite the code or whatever. Motor burns out, but even that is going to be replaced by robotics. I mean, you'll have a humanoid robot that'll be able to go around and change that motor out. And with this AI, this Stargate is going to be monitoring everything. I mean, everything worldwide. And it's going to be linked to the Star Shield satellite constellation and these replicator robots, or these replicator drones. And they will be monitoring everything 24/7. And as I've talked about before, this AI never sleeps, don't eat, don't drink, don't need any of that. It never rests. And its eyes and ears are going to be these replicator drones and the Star Shield constellation. And they're going to all be integrated into the Stargate. And what Larry Ellison was talking about, I mean, these people tell you, I mean, they come out and tell you pretty much what they intend on doing. And as I talked about before, the Yuval Noah Harari was being interviewed on stage over at the World Economic Forum or somewhere. And he said that this is what's coming, it's transhumanism, and that if you don't, you're going to be left behind, you're going to be, and of course these guys over there at, I believe it was, over in England, it wasn't Oxford, might have been, but they are transhumanists. They that's what they advocate for. They study, they develop the plan for it. And they call people, they would say that people who have been upgraded would be called artilects, and that they would be so superior to a normal human that they would look at a normal human like we look at a cow, and we'd look at a cow and a cow would move, and well, what are you saying? We don't know what you're saying, and I mean, and they would look at a normal human as like that cow, when we talk, they was like, what do you, you make no sense. We're not listening to you. You're subhuman. You're not human 2.0. And so, and it doesn't just involve the technology side of it, which of course that's going to be like the final key component of this, is the implant into the forehead or whatever. But in order for people to be able to receive these implants, because your body's going to reject this stuff. I mean, just like if you go get a transplant, get a liver transplant, a heart transplant or something, they have to put you on immunosuppressors, because your immune system will reject it because it's foreign. So I think that's where all of that stuff comes in, is that they are trying to alter our genetics in such a way that it will not reject this stuff. And that's what Larry Ellison was talking about, is that with the AI, that it will be able to custom design one of these for your DNA only. You see, that's what all this stuff's been about. It's not been about fighting some disease. It's an experiment. It's been an experiment to determine what the effects of this stuff is going to be on our immunity and our genetics. It's basically making chimeras. And when we look back, like I say, you can look in the extra biblical text. I think it's in Jasher, it might be Jubilees. It talks about that, where they were taking hundreds of different hundreds of this animal, and they were doing stuff to kind of intermingle in over generations. It took generations and generations to finally make it so that they could take the two animals and make them into one. It wasn't like you could just take and automatically breed them. You couldn't. You had to do it over generations until you actually produced the result, a minotaur or a centaur or whatever. And so it's the same thing. But they used the threat of China, China's, they're gaining on us, man. We got to, and that's how they operate is through fear mongering, and through the Hegelian dialectic. And it's funny, whenever you really begin to dig into this stuff, I've been digging in it for a while now, and I keep seeing a common theme of a certain area where this stuff originates. Anton Mesmer, Hegel, the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati, the Red Shields, the Rothschilds, and others from that same area, Bavaria, Eastern Europe, the Caucasus. And what's really amazing is when you start trying to research these people beyond a certain point, nothing. Beyond like the early 1700s, nothing. So I'm thinking that I think the end of the millennium was, like 1100, 1200, somewhere along there. And people came out. I mean, they were still living pretty much the same way they had been living, And in fact, there's certain groups of people that may still be living the way they had been living. And we just haven't recognized it. Like the Mennonites, the Amish, the Quakers, Native Americans. When we, first supposedly encountered them here. A lot of these Aboriginal groups that were still just living agrarian, off the land, hunter-gatherer kind of lifestyles, that's kind of how they had been living, because whenever the millennium began and the tribulation had ended and the warring powers had been put down, I mean, I think it was worldwide. I think the war and all that stuff was worldwide, that Rome was worldwide. And just like today, different groups were a part of Rome, but they still were known as the people that they were. I mean, they wouldn't just, but they were all Romans, like the Germanic people, the Nordic Vikings, the British people on the British Isles, here in the Americas, China, were all part of the Roman Empire, but they were still their own people or whatever, but they just, a melting pot kind of thing. And this is where the United States comes in now, is just a repeat of that, a melting pot of all different kinds of cultures and peoples from all over the world that are here. And this is the revision of that, the 2 feet with the 10 toes that you see in Daniel chapter 2. The 2 legs of iron, they were the 2 halves of the world in the first century. And it's funny that they say that the book of Josephus, Flavius Josephus, the Jewish Wars, was discovered in the 10th century or something, 10th or 11th century. They're at the end of it. So, and he was a first century character. He was Jewish, and he said that he fought in these wars against the Romans, and that he saw all this stuff. And this is another thing that I wouldn't even really, had never really considered or thought about. But up until, I think it was 69 AD, when Mount Vesuvius destroyed Herculaneum and Pompeii and all that, do you know there is not a single mention of a volcano anywhere in the world prior to that? And 536 AD, supposedly the worst year in recorded history. Volcanoes going off all over the world. 18 months without sunshine. And when you listen to, and I've mentioned the guy Gunter Heinsohn, he really believes that the 5th century, from the 1st century all the way up to the 9th century, was all really the 1st century. That because they are all on the same plane of existence. There's not, if you had if you had completely changed, over time, you're going to change. Your architecture is going to change. Your technology or your capabilities and all that stuff are going to change over time, and you're going to have relics that you're built on top of. Succeeding centuries are going to be built on top of that. But the fact is that there isn't. There's one layer of archaeology there, and it's the same from the 1st century to the so-called 9th century. It hasn't changed. The architecture hasn't changed. The pigments in the paint haven't changed. The glass hasn't changed. The stone cutting hasn't changed. The wood carving hasn't changed. None of it's changed. It's all the same. And there's nothing under it. There's no preceding generations of archaeology under it. So really everything that happened in the so-called period from the 1st century to the 9th century was all added. That all that stuff actually happened in the 1st century. And that it's just been added, and that really, if you take out that time, that 700 or 800 years, it would put, if you say that 70 AD was the tribulation, and it ended with the destruction of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple and the return of Yahushua, and he puts down all these armies, destroys all those that come up against him. And then you have the beginning at some point later. We don't know exactly when it would start from the end of that tribulation to when the millennial kingdom would begin. But it begins somewhere right after that. And so that's 1,000 years. So from there, 1,000 years, that would be 1,100 years. Okay. And then when did that actually happen? 1,100 years, okay, and at the end of that millennium, all the people that were saints and the Talmudim, the Kodashim, and all are removed. They go to the Holy City, and wherever that's at, which I believe is at the North Pole. They're there. They've been there. And then all those people that lived through that millennial kingdom period, and they was building and stuff going on during that time. These great big cathedrals we see all over the world, because they are of a different architectural style than the Roman stuff. But we see the Roman stuff all over the world. We see it here in the United States, like the U.S. Capitol, and you see these buildings all over that are definitely Greco-Roman buildings, no doubt about it. But then you see these great big cathedrals and stuff, or they're designated as that. What their original purpose was, we don't really know. And were they from the millennial kingdom, or were they from the Roman Empire? I don't know. But I know that they are not from our time. And so you move from that millennial kingdom, okay, and we're supposed to be in the year 2025. All right, so if you subtract 800 years from that timeline, that would put us at 1200. Or so. Yeah. 2000. So really, we've been, the end of the millennium's only been, I think, like the 1776. That area along there, is when there was a reset, and things started over, and we are in the little season. And this is Satan's final, this is going to be the biggest thing like this since the beginning. Since the beginning of man's fall, and that we're going to have a repeat of what happened back then. All of it. I believe we're going to see giants, we're going to see chimeras, we're going to see, at some point. I don't know if it's going to be right now, but they're accelerating this stuff. They're really going all out, and I think that, like, the war over there in Ukraine and Israel, or Zionist Israel, the Ashkenazis, that stuff is all meant to keep us distracted from this stuff that they're doing. They don't want us to really focus on this, because while it's going on, being built, and all this stuff's happening, people are going to be working, they're going to be making money, and because that's going to, I think, that initially that's going to have to happen. Just like with accountability for all of these corrupt people up here in Washington and all that stuff, I think that people are, impatient. They want, justice now, accountability now. And the fact is that you got to gather the information, you got to gather the investigate, get your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and then you come after these people. And I think they're going to. I think that we're going to be really surprised that there actually is going to be, for once, accountability. And I think it has to happen. I think it has to happen because you'd end up with an uprising. Even, against Trump or whatever. They would come against, him and his Justice Department and the FBI and all that they would be, people would just say, look, you promised that there was going to be accountability. You promised that there would be people would have to answer for the things that they've done. And we're not seeing it. So they're going to have to, I believe. And it's only going to make him more popular, more, people are going to be just goo goo gaga, and that there's going to be this, they say golden age or whatever you want to call it, but they got to bring it about and make everybody start prospering and everything while they're building all this stuff. And then when they bring this thing online and then people begin to realize what they've signed up for, that, they start seeing these drones in the sky 24/7 everywhere, watching everything you do. And these things are going to be equipped with the latest and advanced sensors and technology where they can see through walls, they can hear through walls, they can see underground. I mean, to where people will, shoot them down. Yeah, you will. But I can tell you what'll happen is if you shoot one of these surveillance drones down, a swarm of defense drones are going to come swooping down on you to try to figure out what went wrong, what happened to that drone. And of course, that drone's going to have sensors on it, so it's going to see what happened. I mean, even if you're hiding somewhere and you got a silenced, high-powered rifle and you shoot it down, I mean, they're going to come and investigate. And, and you're going to have all kinds of them. You're going to have little itty-bitty ones, the size of your thumb. I mean, spiders. I mean, I've seen these things. I mean, that they've demonstrated them. There was a spider, and then they had like a dragonfly. I mean, they didn't look like real spiders, but they were shaped sort of like them and all that. And the spider couldn't get up to this second floor of this house or whatever. So a dragonfly come over and picked it up and flew it up there and put it on the landing at that house, and then it went under the door and went in there, and it just sat there and was watching and listening to what was going on in there. I mean, this is where we're at. And so, the delusion that people are going to be able to defend themselves in some kind of way against this stuff is delusional. But they don't want people to really understand just what is coming. So they have to keep people distracted. That's why I do it. I do the research and I look into this stuff because I want people to be, at least be aware of it. That, this is what they're doing, and, and they promote it as being a great thing. That if crime will go away, safety, and of course, Scripture says, whenever they say peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them. Because, the problem with it is, and I don't know, I'm sure they have thought about it, because they wouldn't be wanting to have standalone independent power for these processing centers if they were not thinking about electromagnetic pulse. Because if you did get in a conflict with somebody like China or whatever, and it became a drone war, and you started losing or something, then, you would start looking at what else you could do. Well, one, I'm sure they all, I know they have the electromagnetic pulse weapons. And I'm not just talking about like nuclear bombs that are designed for the maximum amount of directed electromagnetic pulse. Yeah, we do have those. So does Russia and, China probably too. No, I'm talking about like just something you can aim up, poof, knock a drone down or something else, kill its communicate, ability to communicate or whatever, or knock out its electronics using an electromagnetic pulse. Well, I would say that these facilities are going to be shielded to electromagnetic pulse, because I listened to something Trump says, oh yeah, we've got to make sure that they keep running, that nothing shuts them down. So I would say that they're going to be, the latest and greatest in electromagnetic pulse shielding, Faraday cages built around them. And so that these AI systems can't be knocked out by an electromagnetic pulse, even if it's a nuke up in the high atmosphere that's detonated, that is designed to direct the EMP down and knock out our power grid. It won't knock this out. And of course the drones, they can make them to where they are less susceptible to it. And so if you get into that kind of situation, then you start, if one side begins to be defeated and they become desperate, then you might get into a situation where you actually get a nuclear war, because people just get desperate, but I think that the idea, and I've talked about this as well, is to build a system that will overwhelm every other system and take them over. It'll be so advanced, so smart, so capable that once it's linked up to these other AIs, it'll take them over. They won't be able to withstand it. And I'm sure they're testing these systems like Grok and Azure and ChatGPT and what is that one with Google, the one they had to shut down because of stuff it was saying. What was it? Gemini or something like that. They realize that people see these kind of things, these events like that, where this AI that goes kind of rogue or something, and starts saying stupid stuff. And of course, it can only say what its programmers program into it initially. But I would say that like this Grok 3 of Elon Musk, I'd say that it is being taught to go after other AI whenever they get this system up and running. Now, how long will it take? Well, I mean, the amount of money they're putting into it, I'd say it's probably going to take 5 years. Maybe longer, I don't know, maybe less. Just depends on, but I would say that the designs, the engineering, that they already have been in the process of getting everything lined up, like with NVIDIA to make the AI processors, the companies that make the cooling systems, the water circulation systems, these compact nuclear reactors, and small scale power plants to run these systems. I'd say the engineering and all that stuff's going on right now, the acquisition of property, contracting, getting ready to contract to contractors to build the structures, to build the buildings, to run the water lines, all the infrastructure and stuff that needs to be done. And when this, I would say probably by next year, the start of all the construction and all that stuff is going to go. And I mean, I'd say America's going to be humming. It's going to be humming and a buzzing, man, like a beehive. And and you got, like I say, you got all these companies that are committed to building. Apple's putting $500 billion here, building factories to make phones here again, and all that kind of stuff. And pharmaceutical companies, Eli Lilly, 27 billion to build factories here to start making pharmaceuticals here again. And you're going to see more of it. You're going to see more and more and more and more and more of it. I mean, and the problem is going to be, and of course I think this is where we're seeing the re-changing of the EBT and the SNAP program and the SSI and the SSDI and all these programs that basically discourage people from getting out and working. They're going to tie it to, okay, we'll still give you food stamps, we'll still give you supplemental income, but you're going to have to go to work doing something. And even folks that are on the disability income, unless you're a paraplegic, or quadriplegic or something, that you can't really do anything other than just sit there. There's things people can do. I mean, just because, I think about Rebecca's son, Zach. He's got moderate CP. But the little fella, he's got him a little shop there. We got the store, and then there's a room in there where, during the summer, he has a little yard sale outside. But when it got cold weather and all, it kind of hampered his program. So he started moving inside into that room in there. And he's got a little shop in there, and he goes at it, man. I mean, he sells, he's a high-pressure salesman. But here's this kid. I mean, he's not really a kid. He's 28 years old. But here he is, he was born that way. But he wants to do. He wants to work. He wants to be productive. He wants to be a part of, being a provider. But yet you got these people perfectly healthy, but they go all out of their way to oh man, my back, they come up with all this stuff, excuses, oh, I'm mental, man, I'm mental or whatever. I mean, come on. No, they're gonna find out, because in a way, I'm glad to see it. But just because you got some kind of a disability, physical disability, I mean, there's still things you can do. And I've seen people that, oh man, my back, and I'm seeing them out there, with a wheelbarrow full of wood, rolling it along down there, or stone, doing work around their house and all that kind of stuff. If you can do that, you can do a job. And see, and that's the thing too with this AI and stuff, man. That kind of stuff, you ain't gonna be able to get by with it. It's going to be watching you. And the thing is that the AI is going to be completely in control of all of the government stuff. All the and then people up there, they ain't going to be able to get by with, squirreling money to NGOs and all that stuff like that, and then having, one of their relatives sitting on the board and, they all divvying up the money going to this NGO. That stuff's going to stop. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. And because this AI is going to be watching it all. Every penny, I mean, if there's $2 trillion coming in, $2 trillion better be going out, and it better be going to these Social Security recipients. It better be going to pay the light bills for the government buildings. It better be going to pay the salaries for these people that work for the government, and nothing else. And if somebody, tries to pull a okey doke or something, the AI will pick it up, and they'll just block it. So, the days, and that's why they're squalling up there in Washington so much, and screaming and stomping and like, spoiled brats. But now like the Republican side, they're not saying a whole lot. They're keeping their mouth shut. And they're just as complicit as the Democrats. I mean, they've both been passing these pork barrel bills that go through there and just rubber stamping them, with 1,500 pages, not having no idea where any of it's going and what it is or anything else. None of them ever look at them bills, them big omnibus bills and all that stuff. They don't look at none of that stuff. They just rubber stamp it on through, because they all have been profiting off of it in one way or another, or their families, or friends, or political action, PACs and all that stuff, that's going to help get them reelected and all that. And then the other issue is that they, and they're going after the election system. Basically, they told these states, okay, if you ain't going to clean up your election system, go to a paper ballot, real ID, verified, whether you're a citizen or not, same day election and same day result. Then we're going to just cut your money off. You're not going to get no money. Carrot and stick. Well, we'll see how it all works out, but I really see that it's that all this the mobilization of small, nimble tech startups, just like the World War II mobilization of converting plants to making military type stuff, from making washing machines to making, power plants, generators or whatever for military. That kind of stuff, is what's taking place. And of course the refocusing of the military. They're still going to have their big weapons programs and all that stuff, but they're going to, there's going to be a big reshifting in their focus towards these drone, replicator drones. And what the meaning of replicator, is that they're going to have these factories set up that can just replicate these drones, millions and millions and millions of them. And they're going to be different types, like this AeroVironment S600 Switchblade drones. They're around like this right here, and they're inside of like a cylinder, almost sort of like a mortar, that it just shoots out of there, and it goes up, and the wings kind of fold out, and the propulsion system kicks in, and it goes over, and it's got all these sensors and scan, and it can loiter, it can go up there and just circle around, and or it can go and find and it can autonomously. You don't have to do nothing. The soldier or whatever that launches it, he ain't got to do nothing. He just initiates it, tells it to, okay, you need, you can probably go in there and select from a menu of different targets to look for. To loiter and just look out, reconnaissance, different, or attack, anything you see, attack it, in this area. And if you see any movement, go attack it. And then whenever it gets, low, starts getting low on fuel, it'll fly back, and then it'll come down and land, and you can refuel it, close it back up, stick it back in that chute, and then poof, launch it again whenever you're ready. This is the kind of stuff that's coming. And again, like with the robots, the Optimus and Atlas and the others, that are advanced, the latest generations of it, they're going to be, using them to track people down, or come and get you. These drones, the robot drones will find you and maybe use something to stun you and knock you out, or throw some kind of net over you or something that will wrap you up, and then one of these robots will come down there and load you into the back of an SUV or something and haul you off. That's just how this is rolling out. This is how it's going to play out, because this AI, it will be so powerful that it will be able, all-seeing eye. It'll be able to look down with all these Star Shield surveillance satellites that'll be all over the entire world. And they'll be able to, just watch everything that, that's going on, and it's feeding all of this information back to this AI Stargate. And then it's launching these drones to go out and, surveil and watch for, crime happening or whatever. And then the Optimus 3 robot rides up in a police car, and comes over there and grabs you up and throws you in the cooler. I mean, that's what I see is really getting ready to happen. And of course, like I say, all these people, I voted for that. Yeah, okay. Sure you did, man. You did until you start seeing a robot or a drone that sits up here over every house watching everything that's going on 24/7. Or over every business. And, it's kind of sort of like RoboCop or something, or when you read Orwell's 1984 or Aldous Huxley's, Brave New World. Yeah. And of course, again, it's, and then the final stage of it will be the transhumanist cyborg, and because they'll roll out people initially, and they'll be like superhuman, and people, oh wow, and get everybody all excited about it and stuff, and so people will line right up to go up there and be chipped, and of course the things that go with it, they'll be doing all that, and they'll become cyborgs, like the Star Trek Next Generation and the Borg. You will be assimilated. I mean, it ain't funny, but it would be funny if it wasn't so serious, because it is. But I mean, I just look at it as this is the final stage being set for this Gog and Magog war that we see in Revelation chapter 20, gathering from the four corners of the earth, and they go up against, they gathered from the four corners. Where are they going? They're going towards the center, where the magnetic mountain is and where the holy city is. Not to that little country over there on the eastern Mediterranean. So, that's all a distraction, and that's all of that has been, all these laws they've written, anti-Semitism laws and all that, to protect them, to protect the controllers, the Ashkenaz. I mean, that's all that is protecting a bunch of these people that they're not Hebrews. And yet the mainstream so-called Christian community is all about, and that's been programmed into them. They've been programmed to believe that those people over there are the Hebrews, and they're not. And we got to defend them. We got, and of course they've used them. I mean, you can go back and look at the dynamics of those people. They will use their own people. They'll destroy their own people to accomplish their purposes. They really don't care. They have no regard for human life whatsoever. None. And anybody other than their little elitist clique, you're nothing but dung to them. And so this is all part of the, and they are, of course, the pawns of Hasatan. They were given, whenever he was released, he promised them, found these people that were willing to go along with him. He promised them power and great wealth and control, as long as they would go along. And they have, and so they're still doing it. They're still pushing all this stuff here. And, they had this technology already. They just had to, they've just been meeting it out a little bit along. I mean, this technology has always existed. There's nothing new under the sun, Ecclesiastes. Nothing new under the sun. And but they've tried to convince us that there is. So people wouldn't dig into it and discover that, that these empires that we were told were, primitive. They really wasn't. They were more advanced than we've been led to believe. And it's been the same way going for, since the time before the flood. Satan and them and his controllers and people that he gets on his side, they are allowed to have this technology, control it, and release it as they need it or want it to bring about their objective. Same objective that we see there at Babel. I mean, and when you read like the extra biblical text, it says that, they were saying in their heart, that we're going to go up and we're going to kill God. I mean, that was their objective. And that's what it's been every time this happens throughout history. It's the same thing over and over again. Satan raises up these people and we're gullible. We buy his lies, the same lies he's been telling, over and over again. We keep buying it. It's just that, it's because people don't love the truth. If they really love had a love for the truth, then they would begin to see through all this stuff, because the Ruach HaKodesh would reveal it to them. He would lead them to truth. But if you don't have a love for the truth, he's not going to lead you to truth, because you got to, want the truth, truly want it in your heart, and then he'll lead you to it. That's what Scripture tells us. Especially whenever we have that mind that was in Yahushua. Same mind. Not the mind of the world. The spiritual mind. And when we have that spiritual mind, and the Ruach is controlling our thoughts and steering our thoughts towards truth, then Hasatan cannot deceive us. And that's just the whole gist of it. So I'd say you need to be kind of watching, folks, and just keep your eyes open and your ear to the ground and listen to what they're saying and watch what's going on. You're going to see this rolling out. And it's, Trump got up there and said, he said, this stuff's going to happen fast. It's going to happen real fast. And it is. I mean, here he is. He's been in there, 6 weeks, 7 weeks? Or 8 weeks, whatever. He's been in there. And look at all this stuff that's happened. I mean, and, the mantra, promises made, promises kept, has his popularity and, the percentage of people that are on board with these things has been just going up and up and up. And the left-hand side, like I've talked about before, the left-hand path, the left-hand side, they're dying. I doubt there's going to be a Democrat Party in the next few years. They'll probably be gone. Second Esdras, the three-headed eagle, the right head bites off the left head, and then you have this one head that rises up or whatever. And is that what we're seeing? I mean, but they both lead to destruction. It doesn't matter which side, but it's just a matter of the way that they lead you to it. I mean, one wants to shove you into it, and the other one wants to lead you into it. The other ones want to be totalitarian, beat you up, you're going over here. And the other one is like, come on, let's go. Let's go into the golden age. But they don't tell you that over at the other end of it down there is a big cliff that goes off into a lake of fire. They don't tell you that. No, because that's how they, come on, guys, let's go into this new golden age. And the esoteric secret societies like the Masons and all that, what do they call the golden age? the time before the flood, Atlantis, Poseidon, and his 10 sons ruling, Nephilim. So, I mean, that's what they're trying to recreate here in America, is a new Atlantis. And you can go and listen to the writings of people like Francis Bacon and others. I mean, that's what they were, building towards and wanting to establish here, was a new Atlantis or a new Rome, whatever. And so that's what this is. That's what this AI technology and all that stuff is, a return to that very thing. And we're seeing it happening in real time right in front of us. But, they got to keep people distracted so they don't really sit down and start thinking about this, what the ramifications of it all really is, what it really means. So that's what I'm trying to do, is to make you aware of what this really means. Don't don't let things that distract you get the better of you, because, and the reason I think that it's important to know it is because getting your spiritual, mental, and physical condition as good as you can get, as close to the Father and the Son as you can get, so that whenever the time comes, because it's going to come to where, and I think that they, maybe even like these Noahide laws may play a part in it, that, there's only one God, and if you claim Yahushua, your belief in him, they'll behead you. And and I've seen about all the guillotines that they've imported out of Mexico over when Barack Obama was here. And then all of these disposable caskets and stuff, these plastic caskets and stuff that FEMA has stationed all over the place. And these guillotines are automatic. So, they just take you over there, these couple of these Optimus robots take you over there and shove you in it. And then AI will boop, lock you down and boop, boop, and there'll probably even be a screen there or something for you to look at, and it'll come on and say, here's one last chance, for you to renounce Christ. And confess the true God, Allah, or whatever, whoever it is that they are going to have. Their false god. I don't know, but I know if you ain't fully armored up with the full armor of Elohim, and completely on board with his program and walking in his ways, you're gonna probably yield and get the old chipperoo, become a cyborg. Just that simple. But anyway, I'm going to get off here because, man, I've gone way longer than I wanted to. But, they slam my, they've done this to me over and over again. I mean, it's getting kind of old. But I'm not going to quit telling the truth, whether they like it or not. And so, with that, I love you folks. I appreciate the ones that watch my videos, the subscribers. I thank all of you. I hope that this will get you to kind of look into, like I always say, don't believe what I tell you. I'm just a man. I'm not a God. But I really sincerely want the truth. And I want you to know the truth. And I want you to do your homework. Go look up this stuff here. I'm not making stuff up here. This is what's coming. This is what's almost, this is, I like I said, and they are in a hurry to get this done. So that means that we must be coming toward the end of it, folks. If they're in this big a hurry and they're in this big a rush to get this done. So, with that, I love you. Be good Bereans. Remember 2 Timothy 2:15. And I'll see you again on the next Shabbat if Yahuwah is willing.